uh, CEO conference on. I request all of the people assisting to take their seats, or if there is any extra assisting staff, please leave the room for the other people to come, and other dignitaries and our guests should take a seat. So if there is any extra assisting staff, please leave the room. હા ભાઈ મને ખબર છે. On behalf of Government of Gujarat, I really welcome all of you on this event as well as this CEO conference under the titlement of the Oceans Opportunities, Blue Energy, Green Future. So, first of all, I would like to welcome all of you and say that this event is particularly organized on behalf of initiative by the Energy and Petrochemical Department, Government of Gujarat, for the nearshore project, exactly for the nearshore project. And as you know that we have our state has only started the initiative for the offshore wind project also, but currently we know that due to the very high tariff and the world scenario for the offshore wind program, we are little bit delayed. It is post. I am not saying that we are stopping here or we have scrapped it. It will be continue. But Gujarat would like to take an initiative because we have a target of 500 gigawatt overall the nations by the 2030, and the state has a target of the 100 gigawatt by itself, and we just reach to the very nominal level of the around 25 gigawatt in our kitty, 45 gigawatt in our kitty, but we have to reach another 60 gigawatt. We are trying to tap our potential in all the around, not only the large scale, middle scale, micro scale, everywhere, wherever the energy potential is available, Gujarat is ready to tap it up. So, in the latest survey carried out by the National Institute of Wind Energy under the MNRE, we have one representative of the MNRE also, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy also, and according to them, there is a nearshore potential of around 3,000 megawatts. So 3,000 itself in the cost area of the Gujarat. It may be more, it may be less because it is very preliminary assessment. We may go for the detailed assessment thereafter once our program will start. Then, so the Gujarat has taken a chance why not we began our journey, because that was earlier we discussed in our first Vibrant Gujarat Regional Conference that why not we tapped our nearshore potential on this aspect. So this time I have called upon all around this ecosystem. I called upon the wind manufacturer. I called upon the project developer. I have called upon our clearance means main CRZ people also, NCSCM, National Institute for the Coastal Management Authority, and our pre-feasibility developer, Engineer India Limited, is also here. So we would like to discuss that to take the forward our this project program, how quickly we will start, and we decided to go for the 100 megawatt, 200 megawatt pilot scale, whatever the outcome coming out of this CEO conference. So that's why I called upon the shipbuilders also, shipbuilding, some port people are also there. Unfortunately, our Gujarat Maritime Board is not present because there is a parallel program is going on. But they are very keen because they have now already declared their energy port on the same location where we are going to set up our project, pilot scale project, and they have very fast declared it because it is very much required for our offshore program also. So they will greatly help us for the starting up our nearshore program. And we have also called upon the transporters, large equipment transformer on-road transporter and crane manufacturer, crane provider also. So this is our idea that how we can start our program, nearshore program quickly. So first of all, we would like to start our movie and then thereafter we will start our discussion on this issue.
Atmanirbharta is the need of the times. Self-reliance is the cornerstone of building a Vikasit Bharat. Shri Narendra Modi. It is the vision of our champion that has carried these words from mere ideals to India's living reality.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा.
In order to achieve this noble aim, India has pledged 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel electricity capacity by 2030, of which Gujarat's mission is to achieve 100 gigawatts target by the same year. Thanks to the steadfast commitment of the government of Gujarat, Gujarat rises today not just as a state, but as India's Atmanirbhar renewable flagship. Its 2,340-kilometer long coastline is instrumental in turning this ambitious vision into reality, an Atmanirbhar reality. From Gujarat's coasts emerges a new future of energy independence. A potential of 32 to 35 gigawatts of offshore wind. And the first phase 1 gigawatt already launched with central government support through viability gap funding. To accelerate the Atmanirbhar offshore program, Gujarat proposes a nearshore wind pilot powered by indigenous resources. A true testament to self-reliance. At Mahua, near the historic Jagri Lighthouse, India's first nearshore wind project begins to take shape. Minimal land, maximum impact. A proud demonstration of India's Atmanirbhar ingenuity. This is not just about technology, it is about trust. 2 years of extensive LiDAR studies, coupled with comprehensive seabed surveys, have mapped every conceivable possibility, because of which Gujarat is ready. Ready to achieve the audacious goal of 10 gigawatts of offshore capacity. Ready to stand tall as the policy and innovation hub of India's offshore wind sector. For investors, this is more than an opportunity. It is a promise. Seabeds have been identified and are ready to be secured. Approvals have been streamlined, and power purchase agreements have been designed to be stable, transparent, and competitive, thereby benefiting ports, hotels and tourism, skill development, wind turbine logistics, and offshore construction employment generation. Stand with Gujarat. Stand with India. Together, Let us power the world with the strength of our winds and the vision of our champion for an Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Before we begin the discussion, just I give an introduction. There is my principal secretary is here, and along with there my managing director, Sri Ajay Prakash sir is here. I would like Ajay Prakash sir to say something on the project.
Honorable Principal Secretary, sir, Moderator, Mr. Menon, dear colleagues, and all the CEOs and all the industry leaders who have gathered here, I welcome all of you. As all of you know, Gujarat is only one of the two states which have been identified by the Government of India regarding setting up India's first offshore project. And between the two states, between Tamil Nadu and Gujarat, Gujarat is slightly ahead because we have done a lot of studies, and in fact, Government of India has also announced VGF, and SECI had also floated tenders, but as you know, due to various reasons, it was not successful. Now, beyond Government of India's intervention, Government of Gujarat itself wants to take up a project which is a nearshore project that we want to do it entirely ourselves. So whether it is offshore project or onshore or nearshore project, we want to be the first one in the country to demonstrate that this project is not just doable, it's commercially viable. I know when I say commercially viable, at present, it does not make sense to many of you because without any interventions, the price would be around 8 rupees per unit, but we want to get it down to somewhere around 4 to 5 rupees per unit for developers to show some interest. And there are a lot of challenges. How to bring down how to cut costs, how to meet those challenges, that is the focus of this discussion here. We have all gathered here to understand, and there are many stakeholders. Stakeholders not just in terms of people who are going to design, who are going to construct the turbines, people who are from the ports, people who are experts in coastal regulation zone details, people who are in terms of people who design cranes, people who design barges. A whole lot of challenges have to be met, and we want to be the first state to meet those challenges in a manner that demonstrates state's willingness to invest in this project, that meets the expectations of the developers, and whatever the gaps are, those gaps have to be fulfilled in the manner so that this project becomes, if not commercially profitable, at least commercially viable in terms of no profit, no loss for the initial years. And this can be done, this should be done. Nature has blessed Gujarat with a long coastline with a lot of potential. The wind speeds are nearly 7 to 9 meters per second here, which is probably the second highest in India after probably Tamil Nadu's coast. So the nature's potential is there, government's willingness is there, the backing of the state is there. The only challenge is there are a few teething troubles because when you begin something, there are troubles. But when that is why these minds have been called here today, that let us discuss those challenges, let us discuss what the state can pitch in, what the industry can pitch in, so that we are able to realize this dream sooner than later. And I'm sure the offshore wind as well as the nearshore wind project, which is Government of Gujarat's, will see some success in the very near future. With this, I hope we have a very constructive and a very fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Sri Srijit Menon to take over the charge of the discussion. So we can start our fruitful discussion over there. Mr. Srijit Menon is from Avan Power. He is the head of the Avan Power.
Hello. Okay. Rajendra ji, and a huge thank you. Okay. Hello. Yeah, let me try that. This is better. Hello. Brilliant. Thank you. Once again, thank you very much to the Government of Gujarat for having us again. It's an absolute pleasure Again, being with colleagues, with friends, with industry, like-minded individuals to discuss a topic that we've been discussing for quite some time, but trying to find the right pathway and the right solution to lead towards something that is fruitful and we can finally execute something offshore wind. As Rajendra ji said, my name is Srijit Menon. I head up Power. But I'm not wearing that hat today. My job today is to moderate this conversation and take us through multiple levels of conversations that we can have today in terms of areas that we want to be discussing that is very, I'd say limited to nearshore wind, but essentially trying to find how we can create nearshore wind or essentially enable nearshore wind as a pathway or a bridge for India to move towards offshore wind, and I think that would ideally be our goal. So like you said, once again, thank you very much to the government of Gujarat. As you know, Gujarat has played a defining role in India's renewable energy journey from its early leadership in onshore wind all the way to solar, building one of the country's strongest industrial import ecosystems. The state has consistently demonstrated how ambition can be translated into execution, and you can see why we're having this conversation here today. Today's session on Ocean of Opportunities, Blue Energy, Green Future comes at a very important inflection point in that journey, and the journey as an industry, essentially. India's offshore wind ambitions are very well understood. I think there's no one on this table who doesn't understand our offshore wind ambitions. We've been talking about this for the last 10, 12, 13, 15 years, or maybe more than that. However, offshore wind remains globally something that's extremely capital intensive, and I think this is something that we all agree on. It is complex, it's extremely technically complex, it's something that is time consuming to execute. In that context, that's probably where the idea or the notion of nearshore wind comes into existence. Nearshore wind presents Gujarat with a very pragmatic and an executable pathway. A pathway that leverages shallow water, a pathway that leverages a very familiar technology, which is onshore wind turbines as well. Domestic capabilities already exist, and we have existing infrastructure in the kind of vessels and the kind of infrastructure, offshore infrastructure that we need. And, to deliver a very clean, fast, and a brand new industry for the country. And this is where we believe Gujarat is very uniquely positioned to lead this transition. Few regions combined together bring strong coastal wind resources, shallow bathymetry, established ports, proximity to large industrial demands, centers in the Gujarat, centers in the way that the Gujarat does. And importantly, today's discussion is not about if nearshore wind is possible. Today's discussion is about how do we make nearshore wind work, and how do we make nearshore wind act as a bridge for all of us to help India transition to offshore wind. And I think that would be the ideal focus. Nearshore wind must be viewed with a long-term basis. It's a confidence-building phase for all of us. It gives us the opportunity to immediately go into something that will give us bankable data. It'll give us bankable technologies. It's something that we've already understood and something we're already working on. And it helps us develop the marine and port infrastructure and the capabilities that we need to be well versed, well ready, and essentially be prepared for what offshore wind throws at ourselves. And that's essentially where we see. So if sequenced correctly, nearshore wind can significantly shorten India's offshore learning curve. As the moderator for today's session, my role is to keep this discussion practical, focused, forward-looking, and keep the conversation flowing, obviously. We will move deliberately from potential of nearshore towards readiness, then from pilots to scale, and then from individual projects to how we can do it from an ecosystem level thinking perspective. I would encourage all the participants in today's session to be concise, to be candid. If there are any inputs that you need, by all means, throw in, jump in and do add your points. So on that note, thank you once again, and welcome to the CEO Roundtable.
Before we begin our discussion, I just would like to introduce all the participants. Mr. Dinesh Secretary is from this Gujarat. He was the ex-joint secretary in Ministry of New and Renewable also, sir. Mr. Alok Das, it is good, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. Aditya Pyasi, he is the head of the Indian Wind Turbine Manufacturing Association, sir. Mr. Kuldeep Sharma, he is from the GIZ. There's Mr. Kuldeep Sharma from the GIZ. Mr. Rajendra Kharul from the Climate Change. It is from EPM Terminal, sir. Dr. Hariharan is from NCSCM, sir. Mr. Manjul Kumar, he is from the Adani Wind, sir. Mr. Umambesh Bagri, he is from the Sangvi Mover, sir. Sangvi Mover is expert in the cranes and all these things, sir. Then with Mr. Vidya Bhushan, who is Engineers India Limited, preparing the DPR for our offshore. So Anupam Bagri is from the S&P Global. He is a legal advisor. And Mr. Vinit Shah is from the Iron Core and Infrastructure. We have all different kinds of people here. We discuss our now I request Mr. Menon to start the discussion, sir.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you. I think we'll begin with block one, which essentially is resource assessment and nearshore potential. So Gujarat, like I mentioned earlier, Gujarat's coastline has been assessed to hold significant offshore wind potential, particularly in the Gulfs of Skambat and Kutch. From an industry and planning perspective, what portion of this potential can realistically be developed as nearshore wind over the next 5 to 10 years? What data gaps are we seeing from a wind perspective, from Met Ocean perspective, seabed, regulatory, if there's any other constraints that we're not thinking about, that truly makes this project bankable? And I think the ideal way for us to start should be from the policy guys. So maybe we should start with MNRE. If I'm not throwing you into the this one at an early stage, but anyone, let's start with anyone. How do we get the resource assessment nearshore potential essentially for nearshore wind going? I can open to do MNRE, GIZ, Climate Hub, Suzlon, or essentially anyone at this stage. Yeah. Jagdili, sir.
Thanks, Sri. And good evening, sir. Pleasure to be here in this esteemed panelist. And what I see differently in Gujarat is the perseverance. And that perseverance, I think, in the history of India, we have seen that unless you pursue a particular task, it really doesn't come to conclusion. And therefore, we have been talking offshore wind for several years now, almost 10 years, but that perseverance is not left. So, to answer your question, Srijit, two things what I would say, I would recommend MNRE also, that for a risk to be mitigated around the entire wind speeds and the strata and the entire marine spatial planning. Obviously, we have seen MNRE has gone ahead in doing a detailed deep dive in the Tamil Nadu and the Gujarat 1 gigawatt seabed shore also. But what I would recommend here is that if the policy allows, we should open up these seabed blocks, near shore blocks, for the developers to put their own measuring instruments, the MetMast or any other instrument, including the LiDARs, and then give a strong pipeline, which I think Gujarat government is giving, that we will be able to take maybe 3 gigawatt what is potential. So if we identify that over the next 5 years, 3 gigawatt potential, it can be exploited. For us to come to a conclusion, I think the first basic fundamental data set is the wind speed. And unless we do ourselves and we have that data assessed by our own LiDARs, none of them can become bankable. So either it should be open up to the developers, or as a suggestion in collaboration with MNRE, if I can request GPCL also, that both of them can take a lead in identifying certain data points across the seabed blocks that have been identified and collect the data for at least 2-year period. That will be useful. Now for this particular, I do Mahua and others, Jafrabad, there is some data available.
Yeah.
And the strongest correlation point for the state of Gujarat is that there are already across the coastline, there are a lot of windmills.
Correct.
So once we have this at least for a year, then the correlation becomes easy and that extrapolation for the next 25-50 years becomes easier. So, but let us try and open up these bed blocks. I think that will require some kind of tweaking of the national offshore wind policy.
Yep.
Under Model C, it allows.
Yep.
And therefore, if that offshore wind policy also identifies or defines what is nearshore wind, that will become easier.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that to start
Because
with.
that was my other point.
Yeah.
Where do you position nearshore? Is it onshore policy or is it offshore policy? Or is it a brand new policy that's only for nearshore?
I think to ease it out and give a clear-cut signal, I think the offshore policy itself can be earmarked because it's a seabed block. So all will be governed by the seabed block, but it is within the sea, and the sea rights are, I think we know it is with MNRE at the central government. So it will be easier from that navigation perspective that it becomes a subset of national offshore wind policy. And then this particular definition of nearshore is identified. That's what my recommendation is. Obviously, we'll hear from Rishikesh.
As per the policy, there is clear-cut definition that all maritime zones and EEZ, that will be considered as offshore wind. So if any project, if it falls within that maritime zone, that starts from the high tide line. So if Mahua project also falls under that region, then that is also considered as a offshore wind.
So he has made it easier.
So yeah, it's made it a lot more easier now. So we have to consider it as offshore wind. We made it easier for us, but I think we made it a little bit more difficult for you because we now need to bring in nearshore wind into the offshore wind policy, essentially to allow for nearshore acceleration, especially in a state like Gujarat. But if I can just go back to the point that Jagdale sir was making, maybe direct that towards you, which is a very valid point, and this is something that's come up in a lot of the offshore wind stakeholder meetings, that MNRE is hosted, especially when it's come to the tender, that a lot of the developers have asked at an early stage to open the blocks. They've asked for the blocks to be opened up so that they themselves can do the resource assessment, the spatial planning analysis, the geophysical, geotechnical, then come up with a model that defines what their bid would look like. Is that something that we can trial at a nearshore because it's a lot more smaller? We have all the parameters in place that helps define how nearshore can go. What's the MNRE perspective on that?
NIWE has issued guidelines for offshore wind power assessment in 2018. So that have provision that any developers who is interested to carry out the study survey, they can put their mast and carry out the study. But there would not be exclusivity for that developer. So if any other developer who is interested, they can put up mast with some distance of 1 kilometer that we have mandated. So, but putting a exclusivity for a single developer, and that will be another case of curtailment in case of when bids will came. So, but in the next phase, we are exploring that if that model is successful, it's similar to the UK model actually. So that also we are exploring in that broad high capacity. We are exploring that we will come up with. We did not receive the bids in Gujarat bid, so we are exploring that we should come up with a high capacity VGF scheme. So under that we will explore that point that we will allocate high capacity zones for exclusivity basis.
Okay. Alok sir. Yeah.
You are audible anyway.
I mean, we're offshore, so.
First, my basic questions to this audience, with all of our participants, the definition clarity of nearshore.
Correct.
Because what Rishikesh was telling, very correct, that if you see for the outside of the country, the nearshore established, that measurement of the high tide line and low tide line gives only 24 hours time for BOP activities.
Yes.
And that measures a lot because you have to have, if you're a pure offshore, you have got your vessel there placed and you can do a lot of things. But if it's a near shore, it is much more technically challenging.
Yep.
You have to have a time of 124 hours time. You have to do the job. standing there as an idling conditions, and you have to do that. So obviously the definition previously I thought nearshore means like whatever Gujarat has experienced 3 to 400 meter from the sea coast, just like an onshore turbine, we term as a nearshore turbine. If it is there, then technologically we can tell our nearshore, we can use that onshore turbine and termed as a nearshore. So if it is going with the for definition of Risiko's telling, it is an offshore definition.
Yeah, so I think one very basic fundamental thing that we'll have to do at a very early stage for the policymakers itself is to define the parameters, what qualifies as nearshore and what qualifies as offshore. Because what Dr. Lok was also mentioning is very true, especially if you look at the water conditions, the sea conditions in Gujarat. You've got the tidal variations are very
No, I
high.
have
The
seen
current.
that. You say, Sudhir, I have seen in Vietnam, I have seen in
Yes,
China,
yeah.
and the difficulties of construction time,
Yeah.
and also you have to go that vessels where you have to come. I think he's there. We have to just discuss about the material handling of crane availability and
Yeah.
supply chain.
Yeah.
Maybe team will discuss for that.
Yeah.
I've seen this for the definitions from the MNRE to state level. It is very much required right to go to the next step.
Understood.
Yeah.
Any other points on block one? Anyone wants to jump in? Hariharan sir from NCSM.
We can go with that and we can sort out where we can start up with that. We'll even getting clearance from that amount which is very easy. And that's what I'm talking about. So these are very relevant the point. Experience of onshore wind, almost 20 gigawatt. I think probably we need to probably discuss it with shipment. Do we want to just represent us in India as a capability? Do we want to do it to come what way? I think that every candidate according to the so if we want to do it, whatever project which is making commercial activity, we don't want to get a direct that needed to make. Or we really don't want to get the whole. We don't know whether it's even an exploration. That's the reason why this debate has been happening the last 15 years. See, technically, there is no problem. In the world, everywhere, you know, offshore wind is currently available. And people have installed 15 megawatts. Near shore is not so. Indian, Vietnam, Japan, all that. There is a near shore for 20 years. हमको 200 मेगावाट 300 मेगावाट का we know we don't currently have a active technology to do change the world. It's like three technologies that come in. And then learn on it and develop it. So we want to be indigenous, we want to start everything that our technology and it should be commercially viable. And then we don't want the developers also to give their area to इसमें जाके करते they have blocked every point on it and still not. That's something we
Because if you go through the process, it's not an easy process. It takes 7 to 9 years for a big offshore plant to come up.
Yeah.
And I am assuming that already a couple of years of homework has been done in terms of LIDAR surveys and all that. So we have something to start with. It's a question of our intent, how deep you want to go inside the water. There are bridges, there are barges, there are ships, everything is available to go into as many as we want. And what Mr. Alok Das said is right. वो पानी जाएगा तो मैं काम करूंगा, पानी आ जाएगा, then I will have to come back. Don't get into that complication, na. Go further in. Why not? The question is, whatever is the cost, the developer should be able to get the return. And obviously the VGF value will have to be, initially the technology demonstrator project as a country. If you want to start something, let's put in that. Today you have VGF on battery, today you have VGF on cell manufacturing, today you have VGF and so many other new technologies. Why not put it here? I'm sure there is an intent to put it. That's already there. How much to put it? That is important.
Yeah, very valid points being raised over there. Aditya, I'll come to you.
Thanks, and I was really enthused by Risha's remarks that we want to do it this time, and I mean we have assessed the potential of about 3,000 megawatt, and we want to start with this 50 megawatt thing. I think, as you said, we've been thinking about offshore for 10 years, and we've not been learning much. Other countries like Vietnam, Philippines are rapidly improving on that side because they don't have an option. We have an option of onshore as well as solar, rightly so. But this is a very, very important learning curve. I a little bit differ from you, sir, because I think this nearshore is a very important learning curve, which will give us, especially on the policy and the clearances side, how hard it is to take all those clearances and whether somebody is ready to put in money for that or not. So this, if the government does it, and I would, kind of say that if somebody like GPCL can take up this project on its own and then show it that this 50 megawatt can be done and these clearances, it will be easier for a government body to go through those clearances. Studies would be done properly. I mean, I know 2 years of study have been done, and then there is block 3. I see Mahua somewhere near the block 3 itself, so a lot of learning will come. But some very realistic and soil testing, etc., those kind of studies will happen, which will give the gumption to the industry to invest in this. This is the first leg. Once this is done, then I think we have. I am more interested in the manufacturing of offshore wind turbine components over here. There has been a lot of manufacturing, but the IPPs are not doing it and delving into it because it's too risky.
Correct.
If we have this learning, and because of this learning from pure development now, then it opens up a very big door towards Vietnam, Philippines, and those countries wherein we can manufacture and components. That is my take.
I think, Aditya, I want to add. Basically, KP is a hardcore developer. I think from Gujarat, everybody knows we are the hardcore developer, and our portfolio is about 6 gigawatt of that. With GPCL, I had made personal study where near shore is a possible means possible. I wanted to clarify your definition and some sort of packages what is required. So if the definition is clear and suitable tariff when Gujarat shows the day of renewable energy initiatives in terms of solar, we have seen how it is coming when volumes come. So that volumes are there in the 36 gigawatt and near features. So thing is like this, Today, if you clear the definitions and if that OEM consortium is permissible, if vessel is permissible, which vessel could be? If I'm collaborated with some Chinese company, that vessel is allowed in the Indian Sea. That is the Ministry of Defense subject. Another execution there. So these are the few challenges where we can discuss whole thing and see that how the day can come. Rather than 2015 and debate discussion, nothing is happening. So nearshore is the first step. I congratulate you on the head and all. So we have to work for that. And we, our company, seriously thinking for the development. We have taken already the port facility near Dahej. So we are seriously thinking to support to the government of Gujarat initiatives. So let us think like that, we clear the definitions. Technology is available today. So many manufacturers there. So really you can start. So you can define the terms with a good tariff, and I can come back to you what kind of support required in terms of tariff. So that tariff is coming, nobody is in the free lunch over here. So somebody is there for a viability.
Yep.
No such investor, we are the listed company. Nobody can invest if there is that year minimum returns are there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think let us plan about the subject and how everybody contribute to make it a minimum viability. Like Sari said, no profit, no something. So
Correct,
we can
yes.
have some break-even point.
Yeah. So,
Love
so
to
I think the general consensus should be that, and I hope everyone agrees that we look at nearshore from a perspective of learning and understanding. Essentially, think of it this way: nearshore is a classroom, and offshore wind is your graduation.
Yeah.
Right? So you're essentially using nearshore wind to learn, understand. Yes, if there is intent for nearshore wind, then might as well kick off with nearshore. I know, sir, you disagree, but if that is one, sorry.
See, technically, nearshore design, civil foundations
Is completely different.
totally different.
Correct.
You can keep asking tons and tons of it, you still not know how to drill a monopile or put a jacket foundation. Okay, and how to take out HVDC or big HVAC cables 100 kilometers or 30 kilometers inside. It's a totally different ball game. We can do one at a time. That's not a problem. I'm not against nearshore, but let's not take nearshore as a learning step to offshore is what. It's a totally different ball.
So you want to add something? Yeah, yeah.
Why can't GPCL own these projects? Whether it's 50 or 100 doesn't matter. The request MNRE to allot you the seabed, they have to make certain provisions. So you get a seabed block. Engineers India is already doing the DPR, so everything will come into the forefront. And if you produce a EPC, you own the project. It will give a learning. We, and you mentioned in your opening statement also that this Make in India is very much clear on this particular agenda. So there are Indian turbine OEMs who are ready to supply the turbine. We supply, we erect, or whoever wins the bid, does whether it's a developer or OEM or anybody who can participate, but let GPCL own the project. You consume the energy. That will demonstrate the ability to do a project in India, whether it's offshore, onshore, definition doesn't mind. But that gives the complete confidence, and it's a win-win for everybody. And then thereafter, to get this 3 gigawatt, you as a state declare a trajectory and then do the development. And that's how India has come forward, whether it's solar or wind onshore. It has come forward from demonstration projects to today where we are at 50%. So that confidence building process has to be done, which only can be done if a state-led entity can own the project. The real problem in today's offshore picking up is who is going to bear the risk. That risk can be on construction risk, that more risk of offtake risk. And whatever BGF has been allotted today, even if it may increase, but still that risk is there, which who is going to bear. And therefore, in wider terms, the biggest stakeholder in this who can absorb this risk is a PSU or a government entity. So my suggestion is, whatever MNRE supports you get, absorb that. It becomes a Make in India project. You bid it out. You own the project. All the learnings are there for the world to know, and that is where then that takes off. So I think whether it's classroom or a graduation, the project has to happen.
Correct. Yes, please.
Since you mentioned this, internally we have been discussing inside GPCL what you have been mentioning, because the private sector always looks at returns, at the risk. You don't want to invest money where you don't get the returns. Ultimately, it has to be profitable. And only a government entity can do something which may not be profitable, but which is in the wider interests of the industry as such. Because as I said in my opening remarks, we want to demonstrate that this project is possible. Hmm? As he said, you mentioned very, I would like to also answer that question. The technology is there. We know exactly how to do it. But why we are not doing it is simply because of the cost analysis. Because nobody wants to do something in which you don't get returns. So as GPCL, we would like to uh, execute the whole project ourselves. This is our internal discussion, but obviously we have to convince a lot of other people for the money that has to be put in. And to answer your question, whether intent is there or not, whether we want to just do a project for the sake of doing it, or whether we want it to be commercially viable, the answer is a mix of both. It cannot be one. The government is very clear on the offshore wind project, not offshore, for near shore wind project, that we want to do it because we want to demonstrate that this can be done, but it cannot be entirely a loss-making enterprise. So there has to be something which has to be injected so that the unviability comes closer to viability, if not exactly viable. And that is where the VGF component has to be increased, because over and above what is government of India is giving, government of Gujarat will also have to invest something, because the state government, it will be a state government owned project, and that is why GPCL will have to take the lead. So to answer your question, yes, we are thinking in that direction. To answer your question, yes, we are thinking in terms of mix of both. And somebody also, so basically, yes, we want to do it. Our interest is in doing that. So yes. Of course, it will be done only with the support of everybody. And we already hired NCSCM. You mentioned you are also studying. See, studies have all been done. I agree with you completely. The studies have been done. The technology is there. We know exactly how to do it. The only thing is who will take the risk enough to sink in so much money when you know that it may not be giving you returns. Even if the government is there, government also has to do the economic analysis. But anyway.
I'm very happy to hear that. And
Yeah.
my suggestion still would be, don't do between the high tide and the low tide. Do it further in. Maybe half a kilometer in, 1 kilometer in, whatever it might be. Do a water depth
Yeah.
of 10 to 15 meters, 20 meters.
That goes
Which
in
is real
top.
value. Do something which is neither here nor there.
We are set on doing a nearshore project. Once it is successful, we'll go.
The near shore is up to 10, 15, 20 meters. So, no near shore.
Understanding that if we have
Yeah. So sorry, Dr. Lok, you had something?
Nearshore is not exactly the cluster of turbines. If you see the closest turbine to the sea, will be very near, and there will be other turbines. So both kind of experiences.
You can see जनरल साहब, अजय साहब देखिए, आज की तारीख में गुजरात के अंदर, like that you are telling the coastal, say that Searjet line के अंदर, if we can do that. For example, today if you see from Lamba to the Mahua, so if you pelting stone, that is the machine. If you can define such type of as a just an experience, but you are not getting that is experience of that offshore, because you are purely the near shore and it is that onshore turbine. So something like that.
You've ordered from MNRE itself, so they're now going to define how that's going to very quickly as well. I think, I think it's time to close block one, but just to make sure that we recap this properly, there's definite intent. I don't see a doubt in terms of intent anymore. The state is ambitious. The state wants to get it done. The state wants to do it. I think we're all also in agreement that we really want to see something happen. And if this is step one, might as well get on board and get this done, right? I've heard that technology is available. There is infrastructure that we can do. We might have to bring in things from outside. We might have to tweak a bit with the support of Ministry of Shipping to allow large capacity vessels, WTIVs, those kind of things to be brought in. But overall, this is possibly a good step for us in terms of transitioning. So your point is also very well noted. And I'm sure the colleagues from GPCL is taking that down. With your permission, I close block one and we move towards block two, which is transition and the transition piece in terms of how do we get there. Like I said, the block one was all about defining. Now we're talking about how do we get there. If I can open up to the conversation of ports and readiness of ports. Now, we've spoken about this quite a bit when it's come to offshore wind and the readiness of ports for offshore wind. But what is the scenario when it comes to nearshore? Is the port infrastructure there? Can the ports handle the requirements? Do we have the right kind of draft for WTIVs? Do we need WTIVs for nearshore? What do you think? Maybe if it's okay, can I start with APM?
Most of the delay of creating these structures are actually more related to port capacity.
Yep.
20 to 30% of the delay happen because the ports aren't simply ready for what's coming. I think it's very important that we actually take that into consideration and make sure that ports are ready today for the future. Because if we don't start planning it today, ports won't be ready. I'll give you an example. Currently, most of the ports are designed maybe 5 to 10 tons per square meter. Talking about offshore, you probably need something closer to
50 tons per square meter. Yeah.
significantly more. It's not just a case that the port can do a quick refit or anything like that. You need those capacities now. We need to start building those today. So definitely it's something that we should.
And is that something Gujarat has? Maybe I'll come to Sangvi.
Which you gentlemen take it. Manufacturing. There is those saying that those plants proceed further. So manufacturing, the OEM will take it. Developments like getting energy, Sami Moore Limited, or its sister concern, Pan Clean Future Renewables will take it. Which is a vital thing in the Indian infrastructure. See, first of all, it goes up with 3 types of infrastructure which we need to discuss in this particular subject. One is the port, second is the vessels, third is the draft. A port infrastructure in India currently doesn't have a ground-bearing pressure of 25 metric ton per square meter, which is required for handling a loads of the turbine segments or the nacelles, which is weighing up to 200 ton to 300 ton, or a vessel stability or a vessel with 250 meters to 300 meters in length, in width of 80 meters. None of the ports in India doesn't have the capability to cater these things. I have been exclusively working with the VOC Chidambaram port in the southern part of India for the past 2.5 years. With the help of the chairman, we have been handling the blades, windmill blades for the past 2 years at that particular thing. So we had a discussion, detailed discussion on this particular subject, like how we need to go for proceed on this particular subject. So we have been keeping this equipment 20 meters away from the berth. Instead of going to the near to the berth, we are keeping 20 meters away, and we are handling this particular activity of 30 metric ton. We are not discussing about the 300 metric tons. We are only discussing about the 30 metric ton blade, keeping a 20 meter radius and handling this activity with 2 into 600 metric ton cranes. Now, for handling a nacelle of 300 metric tons, a crane of 1,600 to 3,000 tons is required, where I agree with Mr. Klein, none of the ports in India have a ground-bearing pressure of 25 metric tons to 30 metric tons per square meter. So this needs to be addressed. If you start discussing on this particular angle, so it will take 3 years for us to construct the berth, which will have a ground-bearing pressure of 25 metric ton to 30 metric ton. Second comes the vessel. None of the vessel is free. I completely agree with that from an offshore wind perspective, absolutely. But if we're using nearshore as a transition here, we spoke about this in the previous block as well. We've got the same, we're going to use the exact same generators. OEMs agree with me. So we're talking about exact same generators, the same blade, depending on what the capacity turbine. We are already handling in the country largest, whatever we manufacture in terms of capacity turbine, we're importing, we're exporting. Does that not address the question also in terms of port readiness? To start with, does that only one thing, that what is the capacity of your definition you're telling for, but is that capacity plus 12 megawatt turbine? No. It's telling onshore. Onshore. Okay.
The OEMs essentially when it comes to nearshore wind, is defining nearshore from OEM perspective using your onshore wind turbines that are marine grade.
Marine grade.
So if it's marine grade, it's supposed to be I have a 2.7 megawatt, 2.6. That would be a marine grade 2.7.
Yeah.
You can understand. If that is the case, then we have the port infrastructure, the cranes, the kind of that is required to operate the existing turbines. That is
Currently in the Indian, see, definitely this is to be answered by OEM, because in India, the maximum capacity which is being manufactured or imported is a 5 megawatt or 5.3 of Venvent effects. Okay. Apart from this, WEG is having their own capacity of 7 megawatt, but still the viability where the gentleman from Poweriga was saying. So if you go with a lesser capacity megawatt mission and installing the same at a nearby and offshore, installing the same capacity doesn't have a viability on this particular subject.
Point.
Now you need to think after a 9 megawatt to 15 megawatt turbine for the wind industry, for the offshore or the nearshore thing, as per my study. So you need to go with a 9 megawatt or a 15 megawatt for this, which you need a marine grade steel, as you rightly pointed out, with a pile barge or a cable laying barge, which needs to be blocked, which are blocked for next 2 to 2.5 years as of now, which needs to be blocked now if you want to start 30 months after. After that, the material and the crane carrying barge and the commissioning barge, these needs to be allocated right before you start the project. So this is my submission.
Maybe let me, if there's any other points, or can I twist the question a little bit? So what we're trying to understand is if the existing infrastructure can cater to what the current definition of nearshore could look like. Now, if nearshore is defined, and we at the moment it's still a chicken and egg story, right? Offshore when it came up, we still didn't know. None of us knew what kind of capacity turbines are going to come up. We still don't know what capacity turbines are going to be coming for nearshore. But for the sake of this today's argument, if it was sub 5 megawatt capacity machines that by definition has to be rolled out, are we in a strategic position to immediately roll this out with the existing infrastructure? Does Gujarat have that infrastructure? It can be ports, it can be crane operators. Do we have that is the question.
You see, today as a developer, we are doing from 3 megawatt turbine to 5 megawatt turbine in Indian plant. And we face no problem. We have got all the material handling equipment, everything support functioning on it. So as far as the OEM concerned and BOP concerned, we are equipped.
And the ports are also equipped because they're exporting these.
When you are clear the definition of it, to see that what kind of way we have to go. You are telling the main that steel and all. So you have to go a little bit more than.
Correct.
Then I think what you said in study, then the things have to be incorporated.
Yeah, because what we've been, so if you take it as two notions, right? Offshore wind and nearshore. Offshore wind so far, if you look at the way it's been structured and the multiple conversations we've had with MNRE, the industry has been asking for a very clear-cut definition of what do we do and what do we not do, right? In offshore wind, as someone who works in the offshore industry, I don't know what the capacity of the turbines are because the developers themselves don't know what the capacity of the potential sites are in the machines that they want to be using. That's one area of contention over there. In offshore wind, I don't have WTIVs in India. Where am I getting the WTIVs from? I have to bring it from outside. Even though the Ministry of Shipping and MNRE has announced 100% relaxation of foreign flagged vessels for WTIVs, the waiting period on a WTIV is still 3, 4, 5 years. One of them is 6 years now. Yep. Right? So if that is the case with offshore, and with the intent and the perseverance that the Gujarat government has now to get nearshore up and running, if we have the port infrastructure, if we've got, I don't know what the vessels would be that we are using for this, because again, it's not defined to what parameters we know nearshore is nearshore, and then everything after that is offshore. But if we do define it as something that's very close to the coast, and like I think you were mentioning that the tidal line is the definition. If that is the case, do we have the resources?
If you can see today, what is practically happening, let's say a place like Kawar. Some of the developers already doing the 5 megawatt turbine there, that is already somebody here, okay? I mean, if you see that site, so that you
Exactly.
can what?
Exactly.
So that is what is to be debated.
Yeah.
Whether we can qualify to that,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The answer is yes.
So that is what is saying.
That's exactly what he's saying. So if that's exactly what he's saying. So the definition of nearshore will need to be precise to a point which it helps establish. Yeah, duly noted. Exactly. We eventually circle back to that. Point.
Nearshore projects are done to the kind of related to so there are projects the shoreline. So the definition certainly matters, and of course the infrastructure which will be required, that needs to be assessed from the perspective going up to 3-4 gigawatts. Then the significant difference. If you are talking about one project around, then
Internationally, what we have been discussing is actually called intertidal. They are not called near shore. If you want to talk near shore, it means वहाँ पे पानी कभी नहीं
So if that is the case, how do we define milestones? If see, Gujarat government's got the intent; they definitely want this up and running. If there were milestones to be established, what would be the milestones? How do we define nearshore?
Vietnam, I remember in the past, when we were bidding for it and we were constructing it, we were using our standard turbine but with extra protections for the coastal conditions. Marine atmosphere with those cables little different, and even the cables were run on top of a pier kind of structure. They were also not submerged in water. So everything was on top. It's like a jetty structure. To be very frank, it's like a jetty structure. Only आपने दिखाई भी कर दिया. So that is intertidal kind of concept. When you do near shore, you actually use all the vessels, cranes, barges, but is actually needed to actually do. We need to decide what
We call it.
Yeah.
What I understand, India must have done. What I read from this paper also, there is some progress that has happened. So the intent is clear and the data is being made. That will give you the technical parameters under which something has to be performed. So that itself should be taken as a lifeline for all of us and try and see that this project comes.
And what would be a very good milestone for us to be talking about as the first nearshore project if Gujarat government's aiming? I see one topic that was brought up is where GPCL itself can take the onus of the first project with the blessings of MNRE, of course, in terms of how the VGF comes through.
This also gives us the complete test of its strength, in the sense the function, the risk associated with the sea, the turbine suitability, the raw resources available. So this entire test case is involved by this one particular ownership by GPCL coming out of the APC.
And it also matches a global scenario where a lot of offshore wind projects across the world, if you look at the birth of those offshore wind projects, it was always a government entity.
You take from Denmark to UK,
The first project was started. So I think the the sound is clear. It can't be more clearer than this.
Yes, I think, sir, we should not leave at that stage.
Correct.
We will have to give a trajectory, and I would request state. The state has to come out with a certain trajectory of whatever tenders in whatever form, whether it's developer oriented, but then that confirmed trajectory has to be given so that market will start coming. So if you have a 3 gigawatt, then by 2030, if you assume 3 gigawatt is that to be at least ended up, then we'll have to give a trajectory which traditionally can give some kind of confidence to all of us that yes, once this is done, then we will achieve for lending. So that kind of framework is needed either through a policy framework or some kind of some directions from the government.
I think that's something all of us together will definitely support the Gujarat government and stand by the Gujarat government in terms of how we can help. Aditya.
The wind speed, even for offshore, is up 10.
Yeah.
7 to 10 we are talking about. So
For 6 months here. 6 to 7 months here.
does it really make sense to do a big offshore? Or rather, limit ourselves to nearshore? Because that is more potential and that is more viable for the state. Once we do a 50, then 100, 3,000 is the big number itself, maybe we go further. So I think this is the workspace for a nearshore. We can go further, 10 meters, 20 meters, I don't know, a pier structure or not. But I think Gujarat is the idea of the nearshore, because of wind speed. Why should we have above 5 megawatt machine? We don't need.
Point noted. Any other points on? Yes. That's the marine specification that comes in. Okay. And if I may just circle back to the notion of the block, which is the port readiness as well. And this is something GPCL also wants to understand. How can nearshore wind logistics? Now, we're still trying to figure out in this room the definition of nearshore wind. But that said, assume that the turbines that Adani has and Suzlon and the other OEMs in this country already manufacture. How can nearshore wind logistics be integrated with whatever existing port traffic there is in Gujarat, industrial cargo movements, fishing activities, coastal navigation, without actually disrupting core port operations? And an add-on question, is that possible without disrupting core port operations?
In the areas, or at least close to the areas where you're going to be sending the stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe something in the age doesn't necessarily make sense for Mava, which is only 30 kilometers from
Paper, yeah.
In that case, yes, I think we need to start thinking about how we can better do that as well.
Thank you. Any other points on this block? Yes. So will the existing infrastructure, existing ecosystem get developed?
The limitation that what we are taking in this group, in any case, are so shallow that there will be no major shipping of that rock. So they'll always be away. But yes, the local fishermen may ask this objection. If they have, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's something we have to figure it out. Other than that, I don't think it's good.
Yeah, I think community engagement is going to be another obstacle even for nearshore. I mean, offshore wind or community engagement was a major parameter to be looked at. I think that continues over here as well. It's a common problem. It's something that we'll have to. But Vineet, sorry, I'll come to you.
All the old mining boards, which are there, which are originally all lock jetties, where these loads can be very easily be taken care of. And ramping that up or updating those is much easier than considering all these major ports or direct all these ports.
That's a very valid point to offer, and something that GPC will take note of. Any other points for this block?
There was a study done, I think there was a study done on major ports.
But that was offshore.
Yeah, there was
That was offshore. No, because it's quite close to the offshore block. So I think we might have to revisit.
No, that's why the other is Tuticorin. But because
Yeah, they were notified as the offshore and non-ports, yeah.
Kandla was also considered later, but Kandla is far out. But that clearly shows was not the port development.
Which went to Kandla first and then was... Exactly.
Why can't you follow?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to add something on this part. Recently, Gujarat Maritime Board has also carried out the studies specifically for the energy port. We have given the inputs to them. We have given the inputs to them for the both the projects, onshore nearshore projects and offshore project. So unfortunately, the location is coming out very near to the our that minor port which is declared. This Mahua was earlier considered to be a minor port. Now that is going to be a energy port in near future.
Nice. Since we're talking about demand, I think it beautifully transitions to our next block, which is talking about private developer participation and obviously financing and all those things. How do we make nearshore investment friendly / ready / happy for everyone? What defines nearshore wind as a bankable project? And how, from a developer standpoint perspective, I mean, we're looking for points from a developer's perspective. It could be either developer based, it could be from a IPP, it could be from a EPC / ECI. How do you make this bankable? And what are we thinking about making this bankable? Obviously, there's demand that will organically come into the picture, but how do we make this bankable from an investment perspective? Yeah, Rithik.
Predictability means what? Predictability of predictability obviously would come with better resource assessment, which will allow a good model to be there, and the lenders can or the investors can see assured return. In any case, wind is not something new, and neither offshore wind is. So from a technology perspective, that risk is not there if we do a proper resource assessment, which we discussed in the initial. That would be a major. Next point obviously would be the EGF and all that. That will ensure that being a technology demonstrator or an say not even technology demonstrator, say capability building. So that gap would be taken care of, and I think on our bidding or the financial structuring point of view, instead of having an FIT or something, we could look at the latest thing which the market does is like two-way CFD with a strike price. And so those kind of, whatever the word best practices on this, we can adopt those. I think they take care of most of them.
So the key elements we should be looking at ideally is pre-clearances, your grid connectivity, offtake assurance, essentially what was missing on offshore wind. Right? Essentially, what's missing on offshore wind and the points that the developers have made, if that can, exactly, and capacity. One of the, if for offshore wind also, that was another challenge, which is from a financing perspective, banks and funding agencies were not able to define the pathway for offshore wind from a financing perspective. On that, I'll come to you, Aditya.
Geotech risks are much higher. When you go for the limited project that we are looking at, the geotech risk will reduce.
Yes.
The point is, when you do an estimate, when you do a project, and when you actually build it, the gap between what you've estimated and what you spend, that uncertainty levels are much higher in offshore.
Agreed. Yeah.
So those uncertainty levels, when they come down here, the assurance and return becomes better.
And we've learned something in between. Aditya.
So coming to the problem with offshore, and this brings me to a debate or discussion with Chris Wood from World Bank. In India, offshore tariffs, when developers are assessing, it is correctly shooting to around 12 or even higher.
No, much higher. Yeah.
Like that.
Yep.
And that is beyond the 10 rupees limit that we have as of now. So people are baffled that do we actually have to do this? Or
And the PPA was being offered at 4 rupees.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, so then the discussion comes to CFDs. And then on CFDs, I think that you need to have a strike price. When our strike price itself is shooting above 10, we don't have a case. But luckily for GPO, I think with these 5 megawatt kind of turbines and capability to do it on, near to the shore, tariffs should fall below 8, 7, something like that. And then if we do a pilot project with the government, that can act, that would go probably for a Section 62 tariff approval. That can act as a strike price. Then we have a strike price and then we can go for CFD. That opens up an entire gamut of things where you can start putting in, people have a visibility on CFD. Today for offshore, when we don't have a strike price, nothing is there. So that would be
Because the big parameters that we've always been talking about has been single stage or multi-stage. CFD has been discussed quite a bit. Jagdale sir, you would know, with all the multilateral conversations that we've had, MNRE, obviously, you continue to take that forward. But is the direction that we really need to be taking for nearshore CFD, or is it a mixture of CFD combined, like you said, maybe it could be a two-way CFD. But what would the right pathway be for us to roll out an auction?
I would again come back. I think nothing can be really certain what happens in 5 years' time. What type of model?
Absolutely.
To begin with, as I said, it has to be a state-owned project. They will either consume power themselves or blend with the discoms that they will figure it out. And thereafter, we will have to evolve a mechanism. We have just started the MNRE, the central government has come up with BPPA, they are coming up with market exchange-based solutions. CFD is also, SECI is also looking at. But that, according to me, my suggestion is there cannot be one particular solution. That should, the only solution that this particular should come is the certainty to tender out projects to a capacity of 3 gigawatt with a certain time frame. Market will determine what type of model it has to be. It can be, when the first prototype is over, I think the risk around and the entire process of approvals and all is mitigated.
Correct.
Banks will come forward, developers are there, the international money will flow.
Absolutely.
So money will flow good projects. Good projects are those which very certainty is there that this can happen. And that can be only because based on demonstration. I think thereafter, DISCOM, I think Gujarat themselves needs so much of power. They are talking of 100 gigawatt by 2030 itself. We are talking only of 3 gigawatt. I think that's the answer.
And the but just to add, so what we're hearing essentially is clarity in terms of pipeline of projects. One, evacuation, secure offtake at a PPA that everyone's happy with, and at the same time an auction model that would follow a model where the government takes the first step, goes for the first project, proves a point in terms of how we do it with VGF, and then come out with second stage, which is an auction, which we define ourselves in the next year or 2 or 3. Is that the general consensus that we have on this block? Yeah, brilliant. So we should do nearshore tomorrow. All right, moving on to our next point, and a point that has been very close to me for the last couple of years. We touched upon this a little bit when Sir was also talking, and Sir was talking is community engagement. Now, I'll give you a bit of a backdrop first on community engagement, and obviously NCSCM, MNRE, NIVE, NIOT, there's multiple entities, even Gujarat GPCL has engaged on. So when I was with the UK government, we were expecting Boris Johnson to come down to India to be the what do you say, the chief guest of the Republic Day in the midst of COVID, and he got COVID, so the whole visit got cancelled. But that said, we had a recce that we had to do, and this is during the Dhanushkodi offshore demonstration testing facility, which was supposed to be inaugurated at that point of time, and Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Johnson was supposed to come cut the ribbon with fancy stuff, everything around. There was a foundation stone laying. Literally the day after that, we came, we saw, everyone thought we conquered the visit. The day after that, the newspapers and the community was out in large protesting. Luckily, they didn't know we were from the UK, so they protested against Denmark. But that said, the protest points that was raised were very genuine. And I think this is probably where the consensus will lie between offshore and nearshore. And the points is this: how can you guarantee to me today that my livelihood will not be destroyed? Prove it to me, number one. Who from your side has come and spoken to me about offshore and nearshore? Point two. Third, prove to me that you will not destroy the marine environment, and prove to me that what you say, that the marine life reefs will come back 5-6 years. And the last point is, will you give me a job? Now, if those points are valid in offshore, I believe it's valid for nearshore as well. And if that is the case, it's valid everywhere. It's only the difference in community. It's only the difference in the community, right? On this side, we have the fishing community, but often we also perceive to forget when we talk about fishing communities, we're talking about seafaring fishermen / women. But there is a secondary community that gets infected, is the people who sell the marine produce, right? So if there's no fishing, you then get a backtrack of that issue that goes to the communities that go and sell the fish into the wider communities. Now, when we talk about nearshore, offshore, fine, there's a bit of an argument. It's a little bit away from line of sight. You can play around with it. But nearshore, you're seeing it right in front of you. How does Gujarat tackle the problem, or I won't say a problem, but how do we bring the community, work with us, engage with us, but at the same time, make sure that it doesn't affect the morale of the community? This is an open question for anyone to jump in.
First, how really the administration will support for really engagement in that. Basically, what happened, all developers working to the field play, so they themselves are very much engaged with the local people. There are some sort of engagement, there's exchange of this. But when it is coming for a mandatory, when it is coming for a project and all, so how they are giving a support that, for example, like a transmission line. If the government, they have declared the compensation package. Okay. So similarly, when it is coming, concept of nearshore is coming. So what kind of framework where government can give some support to the developer who can go and invest that? That is what is required.
It's a very valid point, because even when you talk about onshore wind, we all talk about ROW issues. We all talk about land acquisition issues. We talk about how farmers might charge you exorbitant rates for an acre of land because he knows it's a turbine. But the issue, even though the pragmatic of the issue might be the same thing, The challenge is two different challenges, right? When it comes to marine communities, there was a very interesting case study that was done on a particular district in Tamil Nadu called in within Kanyakumari, which has the highest density of engineering colleges per, I don't know, whatever the numbers is on district. And a lot of the students of that belong to the fishing community, right? Now, what they do is they go fishing first thing in the morning. They go fishing, they do the task, they come back, they help their parents out, and then they go to college. What do you have as an opportunity? You have engineers, obviously, because they come out with engineering degrees in engineering colleges, but with seafaring experience, right? They go every day out fishing. How does that translate into an opportunity to work with the communities? And I think this is probably where I would have to direct the question towards port operators and people working in the offshore industry. How does that itself, and I'm sure there are very similar kind of models in Gujarat, how does that translate to an opportunity for port operators in Gujarat? Can I come to APM? Or Adani? Sangvi? And
Community management,
yes.
Nowadays, there are a lot of information available in the internet. When before public, there will be an outside people, they will engage and they will
Misinformation, yeah.
Then apart from that, Gujarat coast is maximum rocky and intertidal. That intertidal area is more. When low tide time will be exposed low and it will cut. And because of that, the diversity also more. And there are a lot of institutes, even Gujarat Ecology Commission, so they have plenty of record. So with that, we have to bring up into a solution. When public is coming and with against, we have to prove it scientifically.
Absolutely.
The things and whatever you are thinking, sometimes they can say it's a fishing potential. Then we can say with that scientifically, this is not a potential, it is somewhere away and it is not the right. So we have to come up with solution to say our
So counter the misinformation with scientific information.
the people will outside us, they will engage and they will give a more pressure on that. That we have to handle it. Scientific manner that we have to take. And it is a lot of information is available. Gujarat is well studied. We can get all the information that will help to public also because some local people and also these are a lot of resource biological resources there. They are going to some of the project it will discuss. So that there will be a false news on that. We have to come up with scientifically, which prove that we can say or we can stop it. It is we can engage this project here. So that we have to.
Very valid point, very valid point.
I agree with NCSCM because recently when we went to the Maua and I have seen that there is no fishermen at all. And when we have asked the people over there, they have said no fishing activity is going on. But when I have asked officially to the my marine department, fishing department, so he says that there is a fishing also. I said that what is the exact point you are going to fish over there? There local people are saying that there is no fishing because they have to move up towards the Jakhau and all these things. So even it is happened to the same offshore wind location also. They said this is a fishing area. Then we said that where is the fishing area? Even we have said, even I have studied that report also, that in fact there is no fishing area, no major fish is going.
That is not. That is administrative way. If there's no boats there, then tomorrow if I'm waiting for a project, so they will tell them we themselves.
Can I just say something? Because you mentioned that we have to show a lot of scientific data to the local community and convince them. I just want to make a point as an administrator only, not from a technical perspective, that how do you think so many projects are coming up in Gujarat? From my experience, I've worked in social districts also. Unless people have a stake in the project,
Absolutely.
no amount of data, no amount of convincing, no amount of scientific explanation will convince anybody. People should understand that this project is coming up and this will make us prosperous in some way. So the people have to be, I'm not saying employed in that project, but they have to have some stake in the project, and that is how projects run smoothly. If you just explain to them this is going to happen and you'll not be affected, nobody is going to be convinced. You have to involve them in the project itself. Once they have a stake, then they will convince their own people that this is supposed to be support it.
Yeah.
This is my just
As we do in the wind and solar projects, there are many CSR activities conducted in that areas, and even the political leaders, they come forward and help in
All the
doing all
wind projects that are coming up, they require a large amount of land. So people have to be convinced. So people have to be part of that project in some way or the other.
Sir,
So this is just a lived reality. That's
when we are going from the land acquisition to commission of this thing, every stakeholder, they all supporting with the conditions of course. Their employment should be there. That was
The similar type of model
not
also.
be part of any tender, but will be part of your
If
all sectors straight away from this experience.
correct.
For initiators of NPCI Curriculum are Kalpaka. They are known by the local administration, and whatever the local administration takes, whether it is good or bad, they feel on that particular. So local education is the first and foremost thing. There are two types of things which serve the certain ecology of the ocean. Second is the livelihood of the local people. So Mr. Ajay Prakash has answered number one. Study on the ocean ecology system that it will not. We need to keep up the community meetings with the local educate not once. Yes, and I have already told that this is my 30th year in Santi. I have been working with the Saurashtra and Kutch region from 1997. I know the economic development way at 97 and at 2020.
It's very different.
Mr. Modi ji also has this meeting. It is a sea change of things which are so as Mr. Ajay has informed that we need to educate the local community that will not affect the local economy on this particular and it will give the particular community, a particular region, or the particular area, like whatever you think, like fabrication, like the jobs in the entrepreneurship, like manufacturing or production or the logistics or something like the things that can be developed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very valid point. And if I can just come to Mr. Clint as well, for your comment.
For the fishermen. We were dredging a couple of weeks ago, and all of the fishermen all raised their hands in protest. And we had to explain, we're only doing it in the channel. We're not doing it in your fishing area. You're not supposed to be fishing in the channel. So I think there's a huge amount of disinformation, and we need to make sure that we engage with the communities and make sure that the communities understand what we're doing and how we can help them in ultimate. Second aspect, we spoke about jobs. We actually reluctantly took a whole lot of fishermen from Sugar Island and trained them in our marine activities or mooring activities. And it was the best decision we actually made. These guys knew the tides,
Exactly.
knew how they operated, and they literally transitioned so quickly. And now we have more than 80% of our marine team is actually coming from Sugar Island. So I think it is possible. We just need to put that little bit of effort.
Absolutely, and that kind of reassures a lot of the comments that you see within the shipping industry. A lot of people will never challenge a seasoned fisherman in terms of his naval knowledge. No GPS in the world will be able to save you, but a fisherman will be able to save you in between wherever you are. I think so that was the last block we had. But if I summarize this block, which we've had a lot of engagements on, the community, the coastal community is the cornerstone for success of these projects. But they have to be engaged at a very early stage. You have to engage them. You have to build trust, confidence, but also at the same time, the project also needs to be able to deliver opportunities that are generational. And I remember the last conversation we had, I keep saying this all the time. Offshore wind, maybe it's applicable for nearshore as well. But I believe offshore wind is a generational opportunity. It's an opportunity that if you're creating today is probably for the generations to come. And that applies to across communities, across sectors, across industries that we have in this country. And if that translates to nearshore and the communities understand that through scientific backed information that then counters misinformation and the narratives that obviously are brought about by could be trade bodies, could be people who are not getting paid off, who knows. But that said, community is the cornerstone, and without their support, without their engagement, nothing's gonna happen. So on that note, I'm gonna close the CEO roundtable. I take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for your time, for your patience, for being very candid, honest. I hope the conversation and the flow of the dialogue was as open as we could make it for you to allow for that to happen. And I'm sure GPCL and the state government over here has taken due note of all the points. So on that note, thank you very much, and see you soon. Thank you.
All speakers are requested to come for the joint group photos with our MD GUNL sir and MD GPC.